There has been a myth. All sorts of people believe this myth. Politicians pander to it, and people long for it. The only thing is, it's not true. What isn't true, you might ask? And I shall tell you. The idea that the United States has ever been totally united as one nation. We have always been very different from each other ever since the time of the colonists, and especially by region where we live. Today's video, we're going to talk about how the Northeast started to diverge and get even more unique than it had been before, especially away from the other colonies. Now, the Northeast has a lot of soil, or I should say a lot of rock in the soil, and it's not really great for farming. You know, I mean, you can grow enough food if you want to get by, but you're not going to grow enough food to build up a giant surplus and sell to other people to make money. So, if you were your typical New Englander, someone living in the Northeast, how are you going to make a lot of money? People in the South, they can grow a lot of cotton and they can sell it, but you can't. What are you going to do? The answer to this actually lies in the geography of the Northeast. And part of that is the fact that the Northeast has tons and tons of rivers. So, such as the Blackstone River in Rhode Island and the Merrimack River in Massachusetts. Ingenious people found ways to make multiple machines run in one factory building by harnessing the power of rivers. This enabled factories to produce many more goods in a very short amount of time. In other words, one person in a factory, the average person, could produce about 50 shirts in a day, while someone working really hard in his or her own home could produce about 10. This meant that a typical factory owner could produce many, many, many more shirts. If this person employs a dozen people or so, that person could create several hundred a day and create them very cheaply, go and sell them to other people, and make a lot of money. And that's exactly what many people in the Northeast did. The first state that really developed this system, developed a way to do this, it was, wait for it, Rhode Island. Rhode Island. Samuel Slater, who we'll talk about in a moment, he had worked in a factory in England, and he had learned how factories were made, how they worked, and he studied factories when he lived in England. Now, people in England did not want Americans to figure out how to make factories, and in fact, they made it a crime punishable by death if you were to take plans for a factory and bring them to the United States. So, Samuel Slater went to the United States and built a cotton thread factory in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Now you say, how was he able to do that? How was he able to board ships and come here and build a factory? He had all the plans. What he did is he took all the plans and he memorized them in his head. And that's exactly what he did. Another major factory then, shortly thereafter, was created at Lowell, Massachusetts. And in Lowell, Massachusetts, actually all the steps of textile production, of clothing production, were done in the building, which meant that people at Lowell, the factory owners, could make a lot more profit, a lot more money than other factories. Now, this is all very amazing to think of the new possibilities that factories created, and it is amazing. But it is also important to remember the kind of lifestyle it created. Remember, the typical factory owner was interested in one thing and one thing only: money. And that person was willing to put his workers down. He was willing to put profits before the good of his workers. If he had to work people to death to make money, he was willing to do it. Profits came first. The average worker put in 11.4 hours a day in the factory. And in the summertime, it was very common for people to work 12 hours a day, 6.5 days a week. Some cases, people would work up to 18 hours a day. The only time that you got off was half a day on Sunday, which was for church. If you chose to take a day off, that meant you were not really there for the factory. There were always plenty of people willing to take your spot. You want to take a day off, fine. We'll go get someone else. In addition to the long hours, workers had to contend with the fact that there were hot, burning, moving belts moving all around the factory. And workers were often burned if they got too close and they touched one of those moving belts. If they got part of their hair stuck in a machine, and one of the oil, let's say there was a grease on the floor, and they were wearing leather shoes, if their hair got stuck in the machine, they slipped on the floor, they could have part of their scalp literally taken off. If they got their hand stuck in a moving machine, they could lose a finger or part of their arm. And on top of this, the factories were extremely hot. There was poor ventilation. It was not a very pleasant place to work. And they did this day after day after day after day after day. Needless to say, people usually didn't live long enough for a good retirement. They didn't get to really enjoy the fruits of their labors. They just worked and worked and worked and worked. And keep in mind, there was no workers' compensation. There was no insurance. If you lost your arm, therefore you couldn't work in the factory, you didn't get, they didn't say, here you go. Here's your insurance. You can't work here anymore. Here's your disability insurance. Disability insurance meant, it was nice knowing you. I hope you have a good life. Good luck. And that was the harsh reality of factory life in the early 1800s. As you can imagine, workers were not too happy about this, and some started to try and find ways to organize, to unionize. And the thinking went like this. If one person stops working, the factory worker isn't going to care. If all the workers in a plant walk out, then the factory owner has a problem. Is the factory owner sad at everyone leaving? No. Does he lose money if everybody walks out of the job? Yes, and that was the idea. So, many workers tried this, and they tried to start unions where everyone could walk out, but the reality was most of those failed, and it was a crime actually to do this. And so people who tried this often, especially the leaders, often found themselves in jail, and they found themselves very difficult to get a job. Because if you knew that someone was trying to organize workers, you wouldn't really want to hire them in your factory. Now, were men, another question here, were men the only ones working in factories? Absolutely not. Many families could not get by on just one worker's salary, because the salaries of working in the factories were not anything to write home about. And so many times both parents would have to go to work. Only women were paid less than men. Now, the conditions of life in the factories might sound horrific and terrible to us today, but the reality, of course, was that the standard of living for the average American was actually getting better. And the life that people lived was actually getting better during this time. The life of the average worker in 1850 was much better than your average European peasant of 1750. Life was getting better. And ultimately, these people who put in these long, long hours paved the way, after decades and almost a century, paved the way for American prosperity, and through their hard work, got our economy going and gave us the middle-class lifestyle that we love and appreciate today. Their sacrifices, in essence, led to the pleasant lives we have today. And with that, I wish you a good afternoon, and I will see you either tomorrow, or, if it's the weekend, I will see you Monday.